I totally transformed my setup. It went from this to this. Now I'm gonna go step by step what I changed, how I changed it, and why. But if you're not interested in that, then you can skip to the end, check out the chapters, and you can see the final transformation. One of the issues I had with my setup was the microphone. So I have the microphone all the way on the right here, and it barely reaches over to my mouth. I like having it very close to my mouth when I'm doing voiceover. Unfortunately, the right side of my desk is actually broken, and it will no longer sit there if I clamp it closer because it's hollow on the inside. I would put it on the back, but the thing is, I'm gonna have the exact same issue. It's gonna break the desk, and the overall desk is already bowing. So I ended up putting it at the back on my new setup, and I can get it much closer to my mouth when I'm gaming and doing voiceover. So my pieces are on the floor, elevated on these pieces of wood. I have a variety of issues with this. Some of the cables don't reach properly. My cable management is terrible. It's very difficult to access the back of the PCs, and right there is my Ethernet on the top of the desk. My cat will get in between my PCs and my Ethernet, and she will unplug it. This has caused me a lot of issues with streaming and gaming. And of course, look at that cable management. It is disgusting. My needs as a streamer and as a gamer have changed a variety of times, and my cable management just simply hasn't caught up to it. So going to the top of the desk, I originally had planned to mount my monitors side by side. Unfortunately, my mount actually does not work with how I have my monitors laid out. So this top monitor is actually mounted to a mount that is on the left, and it's almost resting on the top of my main monitor. And unfortunately, my main monitor has to sit lower because of that and not very close to my face, because otherwise I won't be able to see my Stream Deck or my Go XLR. So I can't raise it and I can't move it forward, which leads to me having very bad posture and leaning in for video games. I basically want to move these so that they are more convenient for me. Due to several reasons, I actually can't slide this set of drawers back at all. It does make a convenient cup holder, but unfortunately I'm right-handed. But with my microphone issue on the right side, I can't actually hold drinks over there while I'm using the microphone. So I hold them here, and I also have my work PC on the left side, which is what's preventing me from pushing one of my monitors back and giving me more space. So that's one of the reasons I'm getting 2 tables rather than 1 for my new setup. And on the left, I have some crap on the wall, a filing cabinet, and a printer that I barely use. It just needs to go. So to start the new setup, we're gonna start with the assembly of the Ikea drawers. Instructions are indeed for chumps. So I was really warm, so I had the window open, but the wind kept blowing my curtain, which apparently was changing the exposure of my camera, which is why it keeps flashing a little bit, and I apologize about that. But just enjoy the little time lapse. So this is a different day, but I begin tearing down my setup. I actually ended up staying up until 3 a.m. this day because I had my in-laws coming to town, but I still didn't get it done. I did it the next morning and still didn't finish, and the next day as well. You'll see all my clothing changes. My mouse pad, both my keyboards, and both my mice were all pretty gross. I go and I clean all of these. My mouse pad, both my keyboards, and both my mice are all pretty gross. I pretty much live in this room because I work from home, stream, and game. So I give all of these a little bit of TLC, even though I don't show it on the video. And now it's time to disconnect all the cabling. We're gonna rip all the cabling out and get everything disconnected and set aside for later. I'm gonna move it all to a separate room that I have next to this room, just to make everything a little bit cleaner. I'm also enjoying an Apex live stream while I'm doing everything. It's also really great that I had so much help. Both my cat and my dog were just helping me every step along the way. So I have this weird curtain in my room, and I actually had cut slots in it because I used to have a spot where my cat would sit on a cat hammock, but the cat hammock has actually since fallen apart, and this curtain just looks like absolute trash. So I'm gonna replace this. I'm gonna reuse the legs, so I don't wanna lose the screws. So of course I label it properly. I go to remove all the legs from my desk, and you can really see how much my desk was bowing in this picture. I was a little worried about it. Of course I could have had a center support leg, but I was already cramped as it was. I remove all the legs because I can reuse them. I have 2 animals and limited access to the back wall, so yeah, it's kind of gross. So I decided to clean the carpet, of course. I'm using a specific animal fur carpet cleaning tool, but you can also just use a regular old squeegee. It works really well. And of course, you get to enjoy me being double cheeked up on a Tuesday. You're welcome. And of course, we want to make sure that everything is neat and clean before we start putting stuff here, so I go for a quick vacuum to neaten it all up. Bonus points for a pattern. Just like basic white girls have lattes, everybody has an Ikea desk with these damn risers on them, but I really do like them, so I decided to put them on my setup as well. So I gotta go ahead and get the drawers prepped with these risers, and my cat is there to supervise. So I like controller games, you know, Witcher 3. I also play controller in Apex Legends sometimes, and I like having my controller at the ready. So one thing that I did was I actually drilled a hole in the back of my drawers so that my controller can sit in my top left drawer. I can feed a cable through, and it's literally just always cable managed controller, ready to go at any time. And whenever I'm done, the controller goes right back in its place and the drawer shuts. Perfect cable management. It was one of the essential features that I wanted, because having my controller on the right hand side with my cable dangling everywhere was always a pain in the butt. One of the essential upgrades that I have was actually the desktop itself. So this is the Karlby countertop. It's actually a countertop. It is solid wood with a wood veneer. My previous one was the Linman, which was meant as a desktop, but the thing is, it's literally hollow. It did not hold up, and I didn't want a repeat of those circumstances. Now, at this point, it is 1:30 in the morning, and my wife has been fast asleep for hours. I dragged this thing into my room, not realizing how freaking heavy it was. I could not lift this mother trucker by myself without possibly hurting myself or damaging it or one of the other components. So I kind of had to stop there for right now. I think about it for a few minutes, and I go ahead and drag the countertop over to the left. So I'm gonna have 2 total countertops that make up my desk in an L shape. On the left-hand side one, it actually needs legs, so I decided to go ahead and measure, drill, and screw in the legs, because that needs to happen first before I flip it over. An important part is actually to drill pilot holes for this, because I don't actually know what the internal wood is made of. I'm guessing it's a soft wood, but I'm not 100% sure. Just to be safe, you don't want the wood splitting, so you need to alleviate some of the material, and that's by drilling. So I drill pilot holes that are the correct size for the screws that I'm about to put in, and then I mount the legs with the screws. So at that point, it was literally 2:30 in the morning, and my wife probably thought I was dead, so she came to check on me, and I asked her if she would help me lift these in the middle of the night. I go ahead and mount them up, and this video is actually from the next morning. So now we're gonna go ahead and start working on everything. I made sure it all was away from the walls, so it'd be easy for me to route all the cabling, etc. So let's get to work. The first thing I do is get the mounts ready for my monitors. The reason for this is that since they clamp onto the desk, they can actually get in the way of the J channels for cable routing, and also where I want to put my power strips. So by mounting these first but not putting the monitors on them, I'll already know where they're going to go. Now that they're here, I've got these big long power strips that I'm going to go ahead and mount on the underside of the desk. These are awesome. Now, as you can see with my display of knees holding up the power strip, my brain is a little bit smooth, and I didn't plan this overly well, but it ended up working out. I did this for the second desk as well, and for some reason this one took me even longer, so I guess that's 2 for smooth brain and 0 for brain wrinkles. One of the biggest issues with my previous setup was cable management. So I had everything managed with zip ties and like sticky things previously, so now I have these J channels. So the J channels are going to make it modular where I can add or remove cables, but the cable management will still look beautiful. And then everything else I'm going to try to do with Velcro. I'll still need some zip ties, but it's going to be way better than before. Another issue was charging USB devices like my phone or other peripherals that don't necessarily need to be connected to the computer, but do need to be powered. So I got this bad boy, and that's gonna go right under the desk. So I get all the J channels laid out where I want them. I end up having to make some J channel cuts because some of them are a little bit too long. And then I get some double-sided tape on all these bad boys and put that underneath. If it ends up needing it, I can screw these in, but I think the double-sided tape is gonna do just fine. It's also time to take my Govi lights off the wall because I'm gonna do a new pattern. Unfortunately, we have a little bit of a mishap. Now, don't get me wrong, I love these Govi lights. How they attach the wall is Velcro on the back of the bars, and then there's another piece of Velcro that has a command strip on it that attaches to the wall. So the only way to take them off, you have to take them off in order because they overlap one another, is to pull them off with the Velcro, right? Unfortunately, whoever made this Velcro must have worked for the military R&D department, because this is some of the strongest shit I've ever seen in my entire life. and I ended up ripping off part of the wall. Now we actually get to the fun part. I start bringing my PCs into the room, we're gonna get the monitors mounted, and we get to start routing cables. I happen to be an electrical engineer who specifically works with protection and control. Essentially all I do is schematics, so I'm basically a super nerd, so I actually made this. It's kind of a schematic for all the peripheral devices that I have and how I'm gonna route the cables and what type of cables they are. This allowed me, prior to even starting this, to make sure I had all the cables I needed at the required lengths. I start with laying out the power cables for all the different devices so that I can lay them out on the power strip before anything else. One of the reasons for this is these are going to require the least amount of routing since I have power strips on both desks. They're not actually going to have to go through the J channels much at all. Due to some cable length issues, I actually ended up moving my PCs in a different orientation than I originally was going to. I do have windows on the sides of my PCs, but I don't tend to stare at the internals very much. I'm kind of a practical person. I'd rather be minimal and practical than overly flashy. So then I route all the display cables, the USB cables, the peripheral cables to the PCs, and then I back these up to the wall. I did this off video, but it's pretty much just scooting, so I didn't think it was that interesting. Now my cat is the devil incarnate, and she's always trying to lay on my PCs. I wanted to incentivize her to lay somewhere else, so I actually altered one of the Ikea cabinets so that she had a warm spot to lay, but I still had some nice lighting associated with it. So my setup went from this to this. Thanks for watching.